Today you guys are going to learn how to calculate the area of any circle. Just a review from yesterday, we identified the parts of a circle. The first thing we learned about yesterday was the diameter of a circle is a line segment that goes all the way through the center of the circle from one side to the other side. The radius starts from the center of the circle and extends out to the edge. It only goes halfway across the circle. The diameter goes all the way across the circle and the radius only goes halfway. Today, when we're calculating the area of a circle, we're always going to be using the radius. So today, we are only using the distance halfway across the circle. That is going to be very important to calculating the area. So if you think back to how you find the area of a square, you just do length times width. Or you do one side of the square times the other side of the square because the square has all four equal sides. So if you look at these two diagrams that are comparing a circle back to a square, they have cut off these corners from the square that aren't included anymore in the circle. So it says approximately 80% of what the square was would be the area of a circle. Now that's an estimate, and so we're going to find the exact area of circles, but we are going to relate it back to the square for figuring out the formula. So if you have your handout, we are going to do two of the examples together to find the exact area of the circle. Not the area of the entire square, but the area of the circle. So the first thing I need you to do is make sure you have something that's color, either a marker, a pen, crayon, colored pencil, and I want you to trace over the two sides of the square which form a radius in the circle. Both of these two dimensions are a radius, and if I wanted to get the area of that space, I would multiply those two lengths times each other. So if you can count how long those two line segments are, if you count across the top, we have 1, 2, 3, and down the side it's a square, it should be the same, 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to put this in as being 3 by 3. Now if I just wanted the area of this square, I would do 3 times 3, and that's the area of the entire space. But if you remember on the diagram previous, it said we don't need this extra space that gets cut off for the circle. So someone was really awesome and calculated a way of determining the special space that's being cut off. And instead of me having 1, 2, 3, 4 little tiny squares that cover the entire space, it's going to be multiplied by another number known as pi. And pi is a number that goes on and on and on and on forever, but in terms of math calculations, we are going to use a rounded version of pi, which is 3.14. And that will give me just the area inside the circle, not including these corners that are getting chopped off where the circle is curved compared to the square. So if I want to do the area formula, I should do the radius times the radius times pi, because that's about how many little squares fill up the inside of the circle. So if I look back at this one specifically, the radius is 3, the radius is 3. So I'm going to fill in those measurements. 3 times 3 times, and if you look down here at the bottom of the page, I said the number for pi is going to be used 3.14. Now if you're using a calculator and you just push the pi button, it's going to go on and on and on and on and use a much longer number, which will then cause you to get a different answer. So please just type in 3.14 in your calculator when doing these area answers. If you keep working this out, the next thing I want to do is 3 times 3. That would be 9. And then I have 9 times 3.14 to finish the area. I've already multiplied that out for you, and 9 times 3.14. If anyone has a calculator, they can type that in themselves. You should get 28.26. Now, if you look inside this, you will notice this is filled up with tiny squares all the way inside this figure. Area is always measured in square units. So when you do your final answer, you need to put a squared symbol. I don't know what dimensions those are going to be, but let's say they were centimeters. Then I would put a little 2 to say I'm using square centimeters to fill up this space. So the area of circle 3 is 28.26 square centimeters. And it is super important that you put the little exponent of squared in, otherwise it is not an area answer. So now we're going to calculate the area of circle 1. If you could do the same thing using a colored device, please label the 2 sides of that square. Any color you want. Count how long those are. This is a radius. This is a radius of the circle. When you count across, you should notice that these equal 6. And since it's a square, they should be the same on both. To find the area of a square, you do 6 times 6. But we want the area of this whole entire circle. And remember, we said we're going to use this magical number someone developed called pi, and we're going to use the rounded version, only 3.14. We are not going to press the pi button in the calculator. When calculating area of this circle, I'm going to put radius times 3.14. I'm going to look back at my circle. We counted that this radius is 6. The radius should be the same no matter where you mark it. So it's always the same number times itself. 6 times 6 times 3.14. Okay, 6 times 6, that's pretty easy. 36 times 3.14. Again, if you have your calculator, please type in 36 times 3.14. You should get 113.04. And again, we said this is always going to be measured in square units. So my final answer, if I said these were centimeters again, 113.04 centimeters with the squared exponent. That tells me the shape is full of squares, and I'm doing the inside. If you do not have this little exponent of 2, your answer is not correct. Okay, so just to recap, when we are finding the area of a circle, you always want to use the radius. Always. So here's a circle. They have labeled the radius. This is what I want. If you had a diagram and it was labeled, the circle has the diameter all the way across. You do not want this measurement. If you get that measurement on a homework question, you should yourself draw in the radius and label it. If you get the radius, you could extend it down so that you get the 2 dimensions that you want to multiply together. If you ever get the diameter, do not use this number. You need to cut it in half, label it once, then label it again, just like this. Okay, so now looking at some homework problems. If you currently do not have your homework sheet, please press pause on the video until it has been passed out. Once you have your homework, we are going to look at several questions together. Number 1, the directions say calculate the area and round to the nearest tenth. Okay, when I'm looking at this circle, Is this the radius that they're telling me, or is this the diameter that they're telling me? Hopefully, you are saying that this is the radius because it only went halfway across the circle. When you get this diagram, I want you to draw the other line coming down to represent that square that we were talking about previously. I also would like for you to go ahead and label the other line as 7.1, just like the top one. This gives you a visual representation. I need to multiply these two numbers together. So I'm calculating the area, which is radius times pi. We also said that the pi symbol, we are using the estimated or rounded version, 3.14. Now I'm going to take what I have in my exact diagram, 7.1 times 7.1, and fill that in for my question. So the area of circle 1 should be 7.1 times 7.1 times 3.14. And yes, I do want you writing down this entire number sentence. I do not want you doing it in your head. I do not want you just typing it in your calculator. Please write it out just like this so that you know what you are doing. You should now be typing in 7.1 times 7.1. If you've typed that in, you should have gotten 50.41, then times the number that we're using for pi, which is 3.14. Now, the last answer should have 4 decimal places because I have 2 digits behind the decimal here, 2 digits behind the decimal here. The directions on here say round it, so when I'm done, I'm going to round my final answer. If you type in your calculator 50.41 times 3.14, you should get a very long number, 158.2874. Now, the question said round to the 10th place. I am going to underline the digit in the 10th place. My answer is either going to say 158.2, or I'm going to look at this next digit, and if it's big enough, I'm going to round the one I've underlined 1 space up. 8. Is that big enough to round, or should it stay the same? Hopefully you're saying anything that's 5 or higher should round up. So my final answer, the area of circle 1 should be 158.3, and this question is using meters for its measurement, so I'm going to put meters squared or square meters. You have to put that exponent, otherwise all your answers are incorrect. 158.3 square meters. Okay, I have skipped number 2 because it is just like number 3. I'm going to do number 3 because it happens to be a little bit, when you half it, you don't get a whole number. So, again, when I'm looking at my question, I'm doing area. Area means I want radius times pi. Does this circle look like it is telling me the radius? This goes all the way across. That is not what I want. I want you guys to use your colored utensils, draw in that L shape from the square. A radius and a radius. This number is 13. I need to know what is exactly half of 13. If you had $13 and you had to give me half, how much would you give me? You would give me $6.50. So I would like for you to physically write in 6.5, 6.5. And again, we're using pi in our equation. Hopefully by now you have memorized this number, 3.14. I'm now going to use my new numbers because I had to create these on my own. The circle did not tell me the radius. I had to divide 13 in half to get it. I'm going to fill these numbers in to find the area of circle 3. I would do 6.5 times 6.5 times the number for pi, 3.14. So you're going to do this going straight across. Type in your calculator 6.5 times 6.5. You should have gotten 42.25. Now I'm going to multiply that by 3.14. Please type in 42.25 times 3.14. You should be getting a very long decimal number. It should be 132.665, and if you didn't use a calculator, it would have a 0 on the end. If you did use a calculator, calculators take off numbers that don't matter. The 0 at the end really doesn't matter. Remember the directions. It says round to the nearest tenth. I'm going to underline the digit in the tenths place. My answer is either going to be 132.6, or I'm going to look at this next digit to see if it rounds up one digit more than 6. Okay, this looks like it's big, so I'm going to round it up. My final answer for number 3 should be 132.7, and this question's kilometers. And you must put that little 2 exponent, otherwise your answer is not correct. 132.7 square kilometers, you have to get that exponent in there.
Does that?
When you look down at the bottom of your page, there's no picture there. If you would like to draw in your picture, that's a great strategy. If you look at number 7 and 8, they say diameter. We do not want diameter when we're calculating area. So I need you to write the word radius underneath here. And write the word radius underneath here. Just like in question 3 when they had the picture and they labeled the diameter, we want to do the same thing, but now they don't have a picture. I am going to draw in my circles. I am going to label where the radius goes. And once I know what's half of both of these, I'm going to write those numbers in. So in number 7, half of 9.4. You need to be very careful on this. 9.4 divided by 2.
Let me.
9.4 divided by 2 should be 4.7. And this is millimeters. So I'm going to put 4.7 here. I'm going to put 4.7 here. That gives me the visual that I should be doing 4.7 times 4.7 when I'm doing my area. And then times pi. I'm not going to work that one out for you. I'm just helping you get it set up. Number 8, same thing. It says the diameter is 3.5 feet. Well, you can make that a decimal if you would like. That would be 3.5. I want to know what is half of 3.5. And again, you need to be super careful when calculating this because if you get the wrong number, your area will be wrong. I need to know 3.5 divided by 2. If you did it correctly, you should get 1.75. So again, I'm going to label this on my circle 1.75, 1.75. Seeing those two numbers written here should help me remember my formula. To find the area, I'm going to do 1.75 times 1.75 times the amount for pi. So again, I'm not working 7 and out for you. I'm just helping you get it set up. On the back, you have story problems. So somewhere in the question, it is going to tell you you have a circular object, and it will either tell you the radius of that circle or the diameter of that circle. Number 1 says, Susan designed a circular pool with a diameter of 25 meters. What is the area of the bottom of the pool? Round to the nearest tenth. So just like in our homework, our final answer, we're going to round it. When you're doing these story problems, look through the problem and find the part that either says radius or diameter. Okay, I have identified this as the diameter is 25. Do we want to use the diameter when finding the area? If you remember the area formula, it should say R times pi. This question gives me the diameter. I don't want that. So, somewhere on your page, please write the word radius. And radius is only halfway across. So, I want to know what is half of 25. If you had $25 and you had to give me half, how much would you give me? You would give me 12.5. Okay, the pool is in meters, so I'm going to put 12.5 meters. Now you're going to use 12.5 meters, plug it into the equation where the R's are, and the pi symbol, remember, is 3.14. Please fill in those numbers where the R's are. Please fill in 3.14 where the pi symbol is. And then your final answer, remember you need to round it to the nearest tenth. You only want one digit behind the decimal. Okay? Tomorrow we'll grade this. Hopefully this was plenty of help for you. If you get lost when doing your homework, you can always go back and watch the video again of how I worked out several of the problems for you. If you have questions, send me an email.